The moment she stepped onto the training compound, the noise changed. It wasn't louder or quieter, it sharpened. Boots struck concrete with practiced rhythm, metal clinked softly, and somewhere a helicopter thumped the air like a distant heartbeat. She felt it before she saw it, eyes on her, calculating, dismissive, curious, Navy SEALs, a full unit resting between drills, relaxed in the dangerous way only the elite ever are. She walked straight through the gate without hesitation. Her uniform wasn't polished for show. The marpat fabric was faded at the seams, sleeves rolled high, gloves tucked into her belt. A faint scar traced her jawline half, hidden beneath a smear of dust. She carried no visible weapon, no rank insignia that screamed authority, just presence, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. One of the SEALs laughed first. It wasn't cruel, just instinctive. Another followed. A third tilted his head, assessing her like a puzzle dropped into the wrong box. "Lost, Marine." Someone called out. She didn't answer. She stopped in the center of the open ground, boots planted, shoulders loose. Calm, too calm, the laughter faded, replaced by movement. They didn't surround her aggressively at first. It happened naturally, like water closing around a stone. 8 of them, then 10. Rifles hung low, fingers relaxed, but their spacing was precise. "Professional, curious, dangerous, you're off range," another said. "This is a SEAL, only compound." She finally looked up. Her eyes moved slowly, meeting each of theirs in turn, not lingering, not rushing. When she spoke, her voice was level, unraised, almost quiet. "I know where I am." That earned a few raised eyebrows. One of the senior operators stepped forward, taller than the rest, beard dusted with gray. "Then you know you just walked into a live training zone without clearance." She nodded once. "I did." Silence stretched. Wind pushed dust across the concrete. Somewhere, a radio crackled and went quiet again. "You don't look like command," another SEAL said, "and you don't look like support." A faint smile touched the corner of her mouth, not amusement, not arrogance, memory. "I'm neither," she said. The circle tightened. Not consciously, instinct. This was what they did when something didn't fit. Her posture didn't change. "I warned you." She continued, voice steady, carrying without effort. "I don't recommend standing that close." That did it. A few chuckles, one outright grin. Confidence like that, without visible rank, was either earned or about to be broken. "And why's that?" the bearded SEAL asked, tone light but eyes sharp now. She inhaled slowly, then let it out. "I'm a Marine combat master." The words didn't land immediately. They hovered, waiting to be understood. Someone scoffed. Someone else frowned. "Combat master." One repeated, "That's cute." She said nothing. What they didn't see, what they couldn't, was the history stitched into her muscle memory. Years of dawns that began with bloodied knuckles. Instructors twice her size hitting the ground before they realized they'd been moved. Endless repetitions until reaction became instinct and instinct became law. She had broken bones and rebuilt herself stronger. She had been tested, dismissed, underestimated, then certified at a level few ever reached, and fewer survived. The bearded SEAL studied her more closely now, the way her weight rested evenly, the relaxed hands, the stillness that wasn't passive but coiled. "You here to prove something?" he asked. She shook her head. "No." "Then why are you here?" "Because someone told me your unit wanted to test inter-service close quarters protocols." "A beat. That someone," he said carefully, "didn't clear it with us." She met his gaze. "Then consider this an introduction." The air shifted. The smiles were gone now, not replaced by fear, by interest, respect, maybe, or challenge. One of the younger SEALs stepped half a pace closer, grinning. "You sure you don't want to back up a step, Marine?" Her eyes flicked to him, just once. "I warned you," she repeated. The circle was complete now. Every instinct told them they had control of the situation. They were wrong, and in 2 seconds, less than a breath, the entire compound would understand exactly why. The first second vanished before anyone realized it had begun. The younger seal's grin was still forming when her body moved, not forward, not back, but through the space between them. There was no warning shift of stance, no dramatic wind-up. One moment she stood relaxed, the next she was inside his reach, her shoulder rolling under his center of gravity, as if she'd memorized the exact distance between his breath and his balance. His rifle never fired. Her left hand snapped up, striking the weapon's frame with surgical precision, while her right forearm drove into the soft hollow beneath his jaw. Not hard, perfect. His feet left the ground as his body folded, the rifle spinning free, clattering across the concrete. Before it finished skidding, she was already gone. The second SEAL reacted on instinct, pivoting, bringing his weapon up. He was fast. Any other day, against almost anyone else, it would have been enough. But her movement wasn't speed alone. It was anticipation. She'd read the angle before he chose it. She stepped offline, hooked the sling of his rifle, and twisted. The weapon became a lever against him. He stumbled, momentum betraying him, and she used it, dropping low, sweeping his leg while driving her shoulder into his hip. He hit the ground hard, air exploding from his lungs in a sharp, involuntary gasp. Contact! Someone shouted, too late. A third SEAL lunged in barehanded, abandoning his rifle to close the distance. He was bigger than her by at least 40 pounds, muscles tight, confidence built on years of winning fights. He threw a heavy hook, aiming to end it quickly. She let it pass an inch from her face. Her elbow came up, short and brutal, slamming into his forearm nerve. His fingers went numb instantly. Before pain could register, her knee rose into his ribs, not once but twice, measured, devastating. She grabbed his collar, turned, and used his own mass to send him crashing into another operator who had just stepped in. Bodies collided. Someone swore. Someone else staggered. The entire exchange had taken less than 2 seconds. The compound erupted into motion, boots scraping, rifles lifting, voices barking commands. But then it faltered, because the Marine wasn't attacking wildly. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't even breathing hard. She stood among them like the eye of a storm. One SEAL tried to flank her. She didn't turn to face him. She simply shifted her weight and snapped a back kick that caught him square in the knee. There was a sharp crack, bone against joint, and he went down with a strangled cry, clutching his leg. Another froze mid-step. That hesitation cost him. She closed the distance in a blur, seized his wrist, and twisted until his grip failed. The knife he'd drawn clattered to the ground. She pinned his arm, applied pressure in a way that spoke of countless hours on mats and in kill houses, and released him just as quickly, before real damage was done. Enough, she said, not loud, not shouted. It carried anyway. Every SEAL stopped, not because they'd been ordered to, but because every instinct they possessed was screaming the same truth. Escalation would be a mistake. They stood there, chests heaving, weapons half raised, eyes locked on her. Around them, 3 of their own were on the ground, alive, injured, stunned, no blood, no theatrics, just efficiency. The bearded SEAL took a slow step forward, hands open now, rifle slung but forgotten. His expression had changed completely. No humor, no condescension, calculation. "You could have broken necks," he said. She nodded once. "I know. Why didn't you?" "Because this was a demonstration," she replied. "Not a fight." Silence settled over the compound, heavy and absolute. Even the distant helicopters seemed to fade. The SEALs looked at one another. Pride battled with reality, and reality was winning. The younger one, the first to fall, pushed himself up on one elbow, staring at her with something close to disbelief. What rank did you say you were?" She looked at him, then at the rest of the unit. "I didn't," she said. "I told you what I am." She reached down, picked up the discarded rifle, cleared it smoothly, and placed it back into his hands with deliberate care. "I warned you," she repeated calmly. No one laughed this time. No one spoke at all. The silence didn't break on its own. It settled, heavy, deliberate, like everyone on the compound understood that whatever came next would matter. The bearded SEAL was the first to lower his weapon completely. The metal sling slid softly against his vest, the sound oddly loud in the stillness. One by one, the others followed, not out of defeat, but recognition, the kind that only comes when professionals meet something unmistakably real. She stood where she was, feet planted, hands relaxed at her sides, no victory pose, no tension left to burn off. Her breathing was steady, controlled, as if the last 2 seconds hadn't demanded anything extraordinary from her at all. "Combat Master," the bearded SEAL said again, slower this time. "That's not a title you hear thrown around." "It's not meant to be," she replied. He studied the operators on the ground, then the ones standing, then her. "You could have embarrassed us in front of our own people," he said. "Could have made a point." She met his eyes. "I did make a point." A faint, humorless smile tugged at his mouth. "Yeah, you did." One of the SEALs with a medic patch knelt beside the injured knee, already assessing, already professional. No anger in his movements, just focus. Another helped the first man up, clapping a hand on his shoulder, murmuring something low. Pride was bruised, but discipline held. The bearded SEAL turned back to her. "You said this was an introduction." She nodded. "Inter-service blind spots get people killed. You train one way, we train another. Different instincts, different assumptions. And you think yours are better?" "I think they're different," she corrected. And today, different mattered. That earned a few quiet nods. A senior officer approached from the edge of the compound, someone who hadn't intervened, but hadn't missed a second of it either. He stopped a few steps away, hands behind his back, eyes sharp. "Name?" he asked. She gave it. "Rank?" She hesitated. "Just a fraction. Today, that's not important." The officer looked at the bearded SEAL, who gave a small, respectful nod. That was all the confirmation he needed. "I've seen a lot of demonstrations," the officer said. "Most of them rely on spectacle. This one relied on restraint," she answered. A pause. "You deliberately avoided lethal targets," he observed. "Yes, sir, against operators trained to kill." "Yes, sir." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "That tells me more than the takedowns." The wind shifted. The compound felt different now, not tense, not hostile. Focused, the bearded SEAL exhaled slowly. "You want to run the CQB block with us?" A few heads turned. That was no small offer. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she glanced around the circle, at the operators who'd laughed, then charged, then learned. At the ones who were still processing how quickly control had slipped from their hands. "I'm not here to run anything," she said. "I'm here to cross-train." A grin broke out, genuine this time. "Fair enough," he said. "Then you'll be with me." She extended her hand. He shook it. The grip was firm, equal, no challenge in it now, just respect. As they began to move toward the training hall, one of the younger SEALs, the one whose rifle she'd returned, called out, "Hey, Marine." She turned. "Next time," he said, half smiling, half serious, "maybe give us a little more warning." She considered that, then shook her head. "I gave you exactly enough." A few laughs slipped out, quiet and relieved. The silence was gone, but something else had taken its place: understanding. By the end of the day, drills would be rewritten, assumptions questioned, techniques traded instead of guarded, stories would spread, not exaggerated, not loud, but precise, told the way professionals tell them. And whenever someone asked why a SEAL unit had changed the way they moved in close quarters, the answer would be simple: because once a Marine combat master walked into their circle, and everyone learned how quiet true authority can be. By the fourth hour, the training hall smelled of sweat, rubber mats, and quiet concentration, the kind of focus that doesn't need shouting to hold it together. Helmets lay against the wall, rifles were secured. What remained were bodies, instincts, and habits stripped down to their truth. She stood at the center of the mat now, not as an outsider, not as a challenger, but not as a subordinate either. The SEALs formed a loose semicircle, attentive in a way that would have been unthinkable that morning. "Reset," the bearded SEAL said. Two operators stepped forward, both experienced, both fast. This time there was no laughter, no underestimation, only intent. "Scenario," she said calmly: "low light, confined space, multiple unknowns." The lights dimmed. The first SEAL moved in a blur, aggressive and decisive. The second flanked wide, textbook precision. It was clean, efficient, their way. She let it happen for half a second, then she broke the pattern. Instead of meeting force with force, she collapsed the distance diagonally, slipping between their lines like water through a crack. One hand guided, the other disrupted. A push here, a pull there barely visible. The first SEAL stumbled into the second, not hard enough to hurt, just enough to tangle their momentum. "Pause," she said. They froze mid-motion. "You see the problem?" she asked. The two SEALs looked at each other. Then back at her. "We stacked." One admitted, "and trusted spacing." The other added. She nodded. "Spacing assumes predictability." She reset them, repositioned their feet by inches, their shoulders by degrees. Again. This time they adjusted, adapted faster than most units would have. She smiled faintly. That mattered. The exchange was sharper now, cleaner. They didn't fall into each other. They forced her to work. Good. She still ended it in under 3 seconds, but this time they understood how and why. A low whistle came from the back of the room. "That's not speed." Someone muttered. "That's denial of options." She heard it. Let it sit. Hours passed like that, drill after drill. Sweat darkened uniforms, breathing grew heavier, yet no one asked for a break. Pride wasn't driving them anymore, curiosity was. During a brief pause, the younger SEAL, the one who'd first laughed that morning, sat beside her, wiping his face with a towel. "You know," he said quietly, "we train to dominate chaos." She glanced at him. "You train to overwhelm it." He nodded slowly. "You redirect it. Chaos always moves." She replied, "You don't need to beat it. You need to decide where it goes." He exhaled, shaking his head. "That would have saved us months." She stood. "It might save you a life." That got his attention. Toward evening, the senior officer returned, watching the final drill in silence. This time, the SEALs moved differently, less linear, more fluid. They adapted mid-motion. They broke patterns instead of enforcing them. When the drill ended, he approached her again. "You didn't just teach techniques," he said. "You altered mindset." "That's the harder part," she answered. He nodded. "Command will want a formal exchange." She hesitated. "This doesn't need paperwork to work." "Maybe not," he said, "but it deserves protection." The bearded SEAL stepped up beside them. "You walked into our circle this morning alone," he said. "You're leaving with open doors." She looked around the hall one last time, at the operators who now met her gaze without challenge, without doubt. "Then my job here's done," she said. As she headed for the exit, boots echoing softly, the room didn't erupt into applause. It didn't need to. Respect followed her out in silence, and long after she was gone, long after drills ended and night settled over the compound, those SEALs would move differently in close quarters, not because they were beaten, but because once a Marine combat master showed them the space between strength and mastery and left them wiser for it. She didn't leave immediately. As dusk bled into night, the compound lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the concrete. Most visitors would have been escorted out by now, paperwork signed, handshakes exchanged, but no one rushed her. The unspoken understanding lingered. The lesson wasn't finished yet. She stood near the edge of the training yard, watching a small group of SEALs run a quiet drill on their own. No instructors barking, no timers, just controlled movement, pauses, corrections whispered instead of shouted. They were testing what she'd shown them. The bearded SEAL approached, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He offered one without a word. She accepted it, nodding slightly. "You changed the tempo," he said after a moment. She sipped, eyes still on the drill. "Tempo decides survival." He chuckled softly. "We always thought speed was king." "It is," she replied. When it's disciplined, they watched as one operator hesitated, recalculated, then redirected instead of forcing a bad angle. The drill reset smoothly. That pause, the bearded SEAL said, "We used to call that weakness." She shook her head. "It's awareness. Weakness is not knowing you need it." A silence followed, not awkward, not tense, the kind forged by shared understanding. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. She looked at him then. "For what?" "For assuming," he answered. "For circling you instead of listening." A faint smile crossed her face. "Circles are honest," she said. "They show intent." He nodded, accepting that. From the far end of the yard, the senior officer raised a hand, signaling the end of the drill. The SEALs dispersed, some stretching, some quietly discussing adjustments. No bravado, no jokes. Respect had settled in fully now. The younger SEAL jogged over, stopping a few feet away. "Ma'am," he said, catching himself, then smiling. "Sorry. Habit." She raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "I just wanted to say, this morning when we surrounded you," he gestured vaguely, "that was us trying to control the unknown. And now," she asked. "Now we're trying to understand it." She nodded. "That's growth." He hesitated. "Will we see you again?" She considered the question longer than she needed to. "Maybe," she said, "if you keep questioning what feels comfortable." He grinned. "Deal." Later, as she walked toward the gate, her shadow stretched long ahead of her. No escort followed. None was needed. The guards at the gate straightened instinctively, not because of rank they could see, but because of something they felt. As she passed through, one of them spoke quietly. "That was you on the range earlier, wasn't it?" She paused, glanced back. "You heard about that already?" "Yes, ma'am." She gave a small, knowing smile. "Stories move fast. Truth moves faster," he replied. Outside the compound, the night air was cool, sharp. She rolled her shoulders once, feeling the day finally settle into her muscles. Tomorrow, those SEALs would wake up sore, thoughtful, changed in ways they might not fully articulate. And somewhere down the line, on a real mission, in a real room, with real lives on the line, one of them would hesitate for half a heartbeat, redirect instead of force, choose restraint over instinct. They might never remember her name in that moment, but they would remember the lesson. She adjusted her gloves, stepped into the darkness, and disappeared down the road the same way she'd arrived, alone, unannounced, and certain of one thing: true mastery doesn't need witnesses. It only needs to work. Months later, halfway across the world, the lesson surfaced again. The room was small, too small. Concrete walls, a narrow stairwell, angles that lied to the eye. Night vision washed everything in muted green as the SEAL element stacked at the doorway, breathing slow, controlled. Intel said 2 hostiles. Intel was wrong. The point man raised a fist. In that frozen second before entry, something tugged at the bearded SEAL's mind. Not fear, not doubt, awareness, the memory of a calm voice in a quiet hall. Spacing assumes predictability. He shifted his foot an inch, angled his shoulder 2 degrees, gave the slightest hand signal. Redirect. They flowed in, not fast, but precise. The first hostile appeared where the plan said he would, neutralized clean. The second didn't. He burst from a blind corner, weapon already rising, half a heartbeat. Instead of forcing the shot, the SEAL stepped offline, letting momentum betray the man. A teammate filled the gap. The threat collapsed without a round fired. Then a third shape moved, unaccounted for, panicked, wrong. Again, the pause, again, the redirect. When it was over, the room fell silent the same way that Compound had. Heavy, deliberate, everyone alive, no friendly injuries, no chaos. Back at the forward operating base, gear came off in measured motions. No cheers, no bravado, just quiet processing. The younger SEAL, older now, sharper, leaned against a crate, helmet dangling from his fingers. That adjustment at the door. He said to the bearded SEAL, "You felt it too, right?" He nodded. "Yeah." "What made you change it?" The bearded SEAL thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Someone taught me to listen to space." Later, as reports were filed and radios hummed, he found a moment alone and pulled a small, battered notebook from his pack. He didn't write names, he never had, just principles. Tonight, he added a line, "Control isn't domination, it's direction." He closed the notebook and sat back, exhaling slowly. Elsewhere, another country, another base. She stood on a different mat with a different unit. Same calm, same stillness, same lesson unfolding without spectacle. She didn't know about the room halfway across the world. She didn't need to. Mastery didn't require updates. Weeks later, a secure message passed quietly through channels that rarely spoke unless something mattered. No rank attached, no signature, just a single sentence routed through someone who knew where to send it. It worked. She read it once. That was enough. She deleted the message, tightened the straps on her gloves, and stepped forward as another circle formed. Not hostile, not mocking, just curious. She let them gather, let them assume. When the moment came, she didn't announce herself. She never did anymore, because somewhere out there, professionals were moving differently in the dark, pausing when it mattered, redirecting when it counted, surviving because a lesson had taken root. And that was the only proof a Marine combat master ever needed.